I was trying to reinforce unwavering faith through affirmations and prayer and meditation and visualization, you name it, while simultaneously, as a father, having to do what is responsible. I had to prepare for my death. I have to get all my affairs in order, and I have to prepare everything for my kids as if I were going to die. That was the hardest part, was this dichotomy between how do I maintain unwavering faith in every fiber of my being while I prepare logistically for the death that could come, so that my kids aren't left, and my wife's not left without all of my affairs in order.
Hal, so good to see you, man. I was looking at the last time that we talked and had an official podcast conversation. I know how busy you are. I was looking at it. I cannot believe it was 2016 when we last had a conversation.
Wow. And I'm guessing that was right. I was diagnosed with cancer in 2016, so it was probably like months before.
It was before, because unless you knew about it and didn't address it, it must have been.
Once I knew I was in the hospital,
like talk about it
the same day, so I definitely didn't know about it. So yeah, man, that's wild.
Tell me what happened there. I mean, obviously you had this diagnosis. I'm not sure the nuance and the intricacies of it, but I'm actually very curious about what happened there.
Yeah, so I was 37 years old. I had two kids, still have two kids, but at the time my daughter was 7 and my son was 4, so relatively young. And we had just moved to Texas. My wife and I had moved to Texas like 3-4 months prior. So we're in a new house, and like my career had taken off, Miracle Mornings International, all these things. Like life was great.
Right.
And I'm a pretty healthy person, or I should say I had the identity of a healthy person, right? Like, it's interesting. I learned a lot about our identity. Like, you think you're healthy because you're healthier than maybe most people, but what are you taking? What are you eating? What are you drinking that might not be contributing to your health? And so I just woke up in the middle of the night struggling to breathe. And long story short, it was many days in the hospital. They're draining 1 liter to 2 liters of fluid from my lungs so I can breathe. And then it's refilling with fluid, and I'm going back to the hospital, and just I'm like living in and out of the hospital. And it took a while to diagnose, but it was a very rare, aggressive form of cancer called acute lymphoblastic leukemia. So it's a blood cancer. And that particular cancer, it shuts your organs down. So when they finally found out what it was, not only was my lung filling with fluid, my heart was on the verge of failing, and my kidneys were failing. And so they had to I had to go into immediate procedures, and ended up being given a 20 to 30% chance of surviving, which, as a dad with 2 young kids, being told the flip side of the 20 to 30% survival rate is, of course, a 70 to 80% chance that I'm going to die. And so I had to pull out every tool that I knew in terms of health and mindset and the mind-body connection and all of it to try to beat cancer. And the last thing I'll say, and then I'll ask me any questions that you have, but my wife was, of course, distraught and scared and, thinking I'm going to lose my husband. And I said, sweetheart, I know you're scared, but I believe that there is a 100% chance that I will be among the 20 to 30% of the survivors of this cancer, because I will do everything that they did and more. You have to understand that survival rate is people that live in fear, that eat terrible food, that have a really weak mindset. Like, I'm going to do everything that the survivors do and more. So I'm actually not scared. I have unwavering faith that I will beat this cancer. And then fear came later as I was laying in bed, bald, 40 pounds lighter, on chemotherapy, feeling like I was going to die. That's when the fear crept in a little bit after.
What was the fear obviously you have a fear of leaving your family behind? Yep. Was it a fear of the unknown of the afterlife? Like,
not at all. No fear of death. No fear of death. So when I was 20 years old, I was hit head on by a drunk driver, found dead at the scene of the car accident. My heart stopped for 6 minutes. I broke 11 bones, came out of a coma, told I would never walk again. So I'd already faced kind of death and made peace with it at 20 years old. I was never afraid of death after that. I was like, whenever it's time to die, like, it's time to die. And to me, the way I look at death, I feel like a fear of death is in some ways irrational, unless the fear is of like how it's going to affect your family. That was my fear. But to me, sure, death and birth are two sides of the same coin. Like, If you're born, that means you will die someday. And to me, there's no fear of being born. And like, to me, there's no fear of death. It's like, that's just the other side whenever it's time. The fear was, what does that mean for my family? Like, what is it going to do to my kids? I'm at peace with death, but I'm not at peace with my babies growing up without dad. Like the impact that could have on them is really terrifying for me. And so that's where the fear was, is not the fear of death, but the fear of leaving my children without a dad.
I guess I've always felt like I'm a faithful person. I'm probably not as active maybe as I need to be with my relationship with God.
Yeah.
But I either feel like he exists and all will be well, or he doesn't and I'll never know.
Yeah.
And either way, I'm coming to terms with, and I'm okay with that. But you're right. I do not want to leave my kids destitute, sad, without the lessons that I would have otherwise taught them, those sorts of things.
Yeah. And my wife and I really balance each other out, right? So it's like, if it was just me with my kids without my wife, like they would not get a full parenting experience that they need to be well-rounded. And then I think the same is true. Like, I'm thinking, oh man, if they just have my wife, who's amazing, but it's like, they really do get so much from each of us, like I think most kids get from their parents.
Well, yeah, I think every child has, I would dare say, a right to be raised by a mother and father. Totally. And it doesn't always work that way. And I went through a divorce several years ago where, my 4 kids are split equal time between their mom and myself. Yeah. It's not ideal. Yeah. Ideally, it would be a mother and a father in the house. So I can definitely agree with what you're saying on that.
Yeah. 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 The thing that was hard with the cancer was, so I wrote a book, my follow-up to my primary book, Miracle Morning. I had a follow-up book called The Miracle Equation. And the Miracle Equation is just 2 simple decisions. Unwavering faith, primarily in yourself, like unwavering faith that I can overcome or accomplish anything. And then extraordinary effort, which is just the commitment to do whatever it takes, right? It's very simple binary. And the hard part was, so I was trying to maintain and reinforce this unwavering faith. When I had my car accident, I had unwavering faith that I would walk again, right? Even though the doctor said I would never walk again. And I took my first step 3 weeks after I was found dead at the scene. So it was this miraculous turnaround. And I had faith based on that, especially going, wow, okay, I did this once when the doctors told me I wouldn't walk again, that I defied the odds. Now the doctors are saying I have a majority chance that I'm going to die. Well, I'm going to defy the odds again with unwavering faith that I'm going to live. So here was the hard part. Is I was trying to reinforce unwavering faith through affirmations and prayer and meditation and visualization, you name it, while simultaneously as a father having to do what is responsible, I had to prepare for my death. Meaning I had to go, okay, yes, I'm going to live, but in case I die, I have to get all my affairs in order and I have to prepare everything for my kids as if I were going to die. That was the hardest part, was this dichotomy between how do I maintain unwavering faith in every fiber of my being while I prepare logistically for the death that could come so that my kids aren't left, and my wife's not left without all of my affairs in order.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been in your position, so I'm speaking from ignorance here, but I imagine it would be pretty difficult to update your will and your trust documents and then also simultaneously believe that you're actually going to live.
Yeah. You're preparing to die while you maintain unwavering faith that you're going to live. That was a new one for me, for sure.
I hope this doesn't come across as disrespectful or insensitive to your experiences, but I imagine there's a lot of individuals who are permanently paralyzed or have since passed away who feel like they would probably say they had faith and they did what they needed to do, and yet fate dealt them a different hand. Yeah. How do you reconcile that?
That was hard. That's where my faith wavered as well, because for example, Wayne Dyer, who wrote The Power of Intention, one of my favorite authors and spiritual leaders, and I went and saw him speak when he was alive. I didn't realize this, but somehow I don't know where I was doing some research on some holistic healing, and I came across Wayne Dyer's story, and he died of leukemia, and I had leukemia. And the way I view Wayne Dyer is he's a much older much wiser version of me, right? Like someone I learned from, I aspire to be. And I went, whoa, wait a minute. I guarantee that Wayne Dyer, not guarantee, but I would imagine Wayne Dyer utilized all the mental, emotional, and spiritual tools at his disposal, and yet he still died. What chance do I have? So then, the fear of, wow, what if I maintain unwavering faith and I do everything right and I still die? Man, it was challenging, and I'll tell you that for me, this morning practice that I do, it's made of six practices in one, if you will, right? So the Miracle Morning, there's an acronym, the SAVERS, SAVERS. And the A in SAVERS is for affirmations. And affirmations are my favorite of the savers. I think it's the one that's the most misunderstood. If you watch Stuart Smalley on Saturday Night Live in the 90s, he had that show. You remember? Daily affirmations with Stuart.
I'm good or whatever.
Yeah, I'm good enough. And it was a real exaggerated lisp. I'm good enough. I'm smart enough. And doggone it, people like me, right? So affirmations were thought of as a joke for that reason, or because well-meaning self-help gurus will tell us, like, affirm something that you wish were true that's not true. Like if you're struggling financially, just say, I am wealthy. I am wealthy, right? But that's why I think people are disenfranchised with affirmations, is they're like, they're cheesy, or you pump yourself up. For me, I use a really specific formula for affirmations, and I believe these played a huge part in saving my life during the cancer journey. And at the very least, overriding that initial fear. And so the 3 steps I use for affirmation, step 1 is affirm what you are committed to. So I couldn't guarantee I was going to beat cancer. I had no way, but I could guarantee I could be committed. So I phrased it, I am committed to beating cancer and living a long, healthy life alongside Ursula and the kids, no matter what, there's no other option. And what you affirm repeatedly becomes your reality. So every time I felt fear, oh my God, what if I'm sick? My fever's 105 degrees. I'm close to, I'd pull out my affirmations and affirm, I am committed to beating cancer and living a long, healthy life alongside Ursula and the kids. And I repeated it with such conviction and such repetition over and over and over and over and over again, Ryan, that it literally reprogrammed my subconscious mind, and the fear went away. I literally got to the point of, you could call it even delusion, where like I forgot that fear was a possibility. So the first week or two, I was struggling with fear, and then I start focusing all my savers, my affirmations on beating cancer. Step 2 was affirming why it was a must for me to beat cancer, and I had reasons that were so compelling for my wife, for my kids, for my parents, for myself, that when I didn't feel like going on, and there were times where I wanted to die, in terms of like, I felt so sick and so exhausted and so terrible, but reading my affirmations, affirming the commitment, and then affirming why. Oh yeah, it's not about me. It's not about how I feel in this moment. It's bigger than that. I'm doing this for my wife, for my children, for my parents, and on and on and on. And then the 3rd step was affirming which actions I would take and when. And that's where I clarified exactly what I would do, which holistic practices, which allopathic protocols, in order to beat cancer and follow through with that commitment. And so that was a huge game changer for me in terms of focusing the mindset, not on my fears and not what could go wrong, but on what I was committed to, why it was a must for me, and which actions I would take and when I would take them to ensure that I followed through.
I see the power in that, and yet I'm only framing this through the lens in which I am right now in life, which is a little pessimistic, if I'm being honest, and a little skeptical to put it mildly. And so again, I want to be respectful of what you feel, but when you talk about those affirmations, did that help you cope with, like, I'm committed to beating cancer, for example? Did that help you cope with the reality of what you were confronted with? Like, hey, all that's within my control is I'm going to do what I need to do. I'm going to work on my nutrition. I'm going to work on my exercise. I'm going to work on my mentality. Or did that literally help you beat cancer?
I love that. So yes, and I don't know. Meaning, yes is all we can control is what we're committed to. And here's the thing. In life, more often than not, we don't get what we want unless we're committed to it, right? We only get what we're committed to. And the more committed we are, the more likely we are to get it. I talk about, I don't want to miss this question. So in terms of the mindset, it absolutely allowed my mindset to stay focused on what I needed to do and follow through with that commitment. And here's the thing, that affirmations formula I've been using for 15 years. I've used that to double my income during the 2008 economic crash. I used that to sell 1 million copies of The Miracle Morning, even though in year one I sold 13,000 and I was 987,000 copies short of my goal, right? But I read those affirmations. I'm like, this sucks, man. I'm going to be 110 years old at this pace by the time I sell 1 million copies of the book, right? But I was like, I dusted myself off and I was like, I am committed to changing 1 million lives one morning at a time, no matter how long it takes. There is no other option, right? So again, by focusing on what you're committed to, right? And you can apply this to changing any aspect of your life, achieving any goal, right? You reaffirm it every day and you just remain committed to do what you need to do for as long as it takes until you get there. And you finally, more often than not, get there, right? So that's kind of the big picture answer around how it not only focuses your mindset, it focuses your behavior and your actions to be in alignment with what it is you're committed to. Now, did it actually help me beat cancer? I can answer that in two ways. One is, if I hadn't affirmed the commitment every day and reminded myself by affirming why it was a must for me, and then clarifying and affirming which actions I was going to take, which included, okay, I have to do chemotherapy. And I say have to because I tried to avoid it. And some of the best holistic oncologists in America said, Hal, your cancer does not give you the luxury of trying a holistic approach, a natural
Being
approach.
Experimental.
You have
Sure.
2 to 3, I was given 1 to 3 weeks to live by the doctors. And I thought they were fear-mongering me into chemo, which is why I called these other holistic oncologists. They're like, they're not exaggerating. Hal, your heart, lungs, and kidneys are already shutting down. You have 1 to 2 weeks to live. They said, so you've got to do the chemo. They said, but we would also recommend do every holistic practice that you can, as if that's all you were doing, to detoxify from the chemo, which a lot of people die from chemo, right? So sure. I was doing 3 coffee enemas a week. I was doing ozone massage or lymphatic massage, ozone sauna. I took 70 supplements every single day. I did organic juicing. But here's the thing. All of that was part of my affirmations every day. In fact, day one, it wasn't all of that. I didn't know what to do. Day one was, I will relentlessly research every holistic protocol that has proven effective in beating cancer, and I will implement every single one. That was that step 3 of affirming what you'll do and when. That was how it started. Then I eventually built the list out of, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. So did it help me beat cancer? In my mindset, yes. In terms of it guided me and kept me focused on the actions that I had clarified that had proven to help people beat cancer that were natural. And then last but not least, and this is the one that it's theoretical, I can't prove this, is the mind-body connection. And I do believe, based on my anecdotal evidence of, I was told I would never walk again by the doctors, when I was 20 years old. And I told my parents, I'm going to walk again. You watch. And every day I prayed that I would walk again. I didn't have affirmations back then. I didn't know about them. I wasn't using the affirmations, but I prayed every day that I would walk. I maintained unwavering faith. I would visualize walking again. I talked about that as the only possibility. And you could call it a coincidence, but my femur broke in 2 pieces. I was hit head on by a drunk driver at 70 miles an hour. Second vehicle crashed into my driver's side door at 70 miles per hour. My femur broke in half. My pelvis broke in 3 places. I was clinically dead for 6 minutes. I spent 6 days in a coma. And when I came out of the coma, doctor said, you'll never walk again and you have permanent brain damage. 2 weeks later, they came in with routine x-rays and they said, and they had told my parents, by the way, because I kept telling them I was going to walk again. They said, your son is delusional or he's in denial, and you need to get this through to him because he can't heal emotionally if he doesn't face reality. And what I told my parents is I said, no, I'm facing reality. If I understand that I might never walk again, and I've accepted the worst case scenario and decided I'll be the happiest, most grateful person that anyone's ever seen in a wheelchair if that's my fate. Because I'm in a wheelchair either way, can't change it. I'll be peaceful, happy, whatever. Okay, great. But now that I've accepted the worst case scenario, I'm putting 0 energy into that possibility. I don't need to, because I already know that might happen, and I'm at peace with it. I've already accepted it, done. 100% of my energy is going into what I can control, which is visualizing walking, talking about it, praying about it, right? Imagining my body healing completely. And 2 weeks after I came out of the coma, the doctors came in with routine x-rays that said, we don't know how to explain it, but Hal, your body has healed. You can take your first step today in therapy. So you can call that a coincidence, you can call that a miracle, or you can call that the extraordinary power of the human mind in healing the body. And I'm not a scientist, and so I'm going to explain this in my layman's term version, Ryan. We have trillions of cells in our body. It is there is science proving that, right? Our thoughts and emotions affect our cells, which is why stress is such a cause of disease, right? So here's the way I think of it. Our trillions of cells, they do whatever we tell them to do through our thoughts and our feelings. And so if you're living in fear and you're going, oh my gosh, I'm probably going to die. I have cancer. And you know, my grandfather died of cancer and my mother died. And I knew I might get it. Oh, this is it. And you're living in fear and your trillions of cells are like, oh, okay, I guess we're dying. Then I guess that you're telling us that's what we're doing. I guess that's what we're doing, right? Versus this unwavering faith. And so all I have, I'm not the scientist. I just have the anecdotal proof that somehow I took a step 3 weeks out. You know, I started walking again 3 weeks after the crash when doctors said it was impossible. And then when doctors said I had a 20 to 30% chance of surviving, right? A month later, I was in remission. And they're like, they couldn't explain it. So like, I don't know. I wish I had graphs and charts to be like, look at how my body healed in alignment with this mindset that I had. I just know that it worked. And last thing I'll say is this. There's a famous surgeon, Dr. Bernie Siegel, written a lot of books. He has over 3,000 cancer patients. He was a cancer surgeon. And I had him on my podcast. And he said, Hal, and I think this was actually in his book, which is why I had him on my podcast. He said, Hal, I've treated over 3,000 patients. And he said, I've lost plenty of patients. They died. And I've had a lot survive. And he said, I've had a lot of patients that had very beatable cancers, that had a very high survival rate, but they had made up their mind that they knew they were going to die. It was almost always like someone in their family had cancer, and they knew that it would happen to them, and now they did,
Fate,
and now it was
almost.
over. What'd you say?
I said fate almost, like this is my fate. This is what I'm resigned
and so he
to.
said, and he watched them die when they should have beat the cancer. And he said, and he also saw so many cancer patients that had cancers that the survival rate was extremely low. He said the number one common denominator in the cancer patients he's treated over the years, over decades, that survived was that they decided they were going to survive and that there was no other option. And he said, didn't matter if the cancer was unbeatable or difficult to beat. He said that was the number one common denominator. So I just think there's so much evidence of that across the board of human beings defying the odds. And it always started with the mindset, the commitment, like, nope, I'm going to make this happen. Come hell or high water, no matter what, you watch me do it. And then they do it.
Yeah, I mean, as a habitual skeptic, when I hear you say that, I can't help but think, well, what's the alternative?
Yeah.
The alternative is just to resign, to die, to fade away, to leave your family, to do all the things that happen when a person dies prematurely.
Yeah.
And, that happens. And I'm not even criticizing those individuals. I'm just saying that's one route.
Yeah.
Or the other route is you can be, based on what I'm hearing you say, optimistic, excited, faithful, put in the effort, and maybe you might still pass away, but
I love
at least you give
that,
yourself the best opportunity.
It's literally, I love you're saying it because it's literally, what do you think is going to increase your odds, right?
Yes,
Giving up and living in fear of the worst case scenario and being depressed and angry and sad. Like, is that going to make your body thrive? Right? Or taking the approach of unwavering faith. And I think one thing that prevents people from doing that is that deeply ingrained fear of failure. Is a lot of folks are afraid to approach any goal unless they feel a sense of certainty that they're going to succeed. And that includes being given a diagnosis, right? You're like, but what if I say I'm going to succeed? I say I'm going to survive. I say I'm going to walk again. I maintain unwavering faith, but then I don't. Well, then you do what I did, which is you go, great. I tried. I gave it everything I had. I'm still in a wheelchair, but watch, I'm at peace with it. Like I can't change it. I tried, I gave it my all, but we got to try and give it our all first and then make the best of whatever's left over.
Do you feel like people in that situation where they have that fear of, hey, I put myself out there, I said I'm going to overcome this thing, and it could be something as tragic as being diagnosed with a terminal cancer diagnosis, or it could be you lost your job today, or you had a breakup, or you had a bankruptcy or a lawsuit. Do you think the fear is derived from what other people will think of you more than anything else? That might be a little bit of a leading question, but
no, it is. I think that's more likely that than anything. That's where the fear of failure more often than not is the fear of what other people will think of us. Right? When we fear in the dark, when we fail in the dark, we fail alone. That's actually there's not a lot of fear around that. It's like no one saw, no big deal. Almost.
Yeah,
I'm glad you brought that up because most of the fear is absolutely the fear of what other people are going to think. And I think that to combat that fear, to address that, you could take that approach that I took, which is like, hey, everybody. Worst case scenario, I'm in a wheelchair the rest of my life. Worst case scenario, I don't complete the marathon. Worst case scenario, nobody buys like whatever the opposite is of what you're trying to do. And I've decided I'm at peace with that. Worst case scenario, if that comes to pass, I can't change it, so I'll be at peace with it. But I'm gonna put it to the side now because there's no point in putting energy in that. I'm going to put everything in my power to trying to make it happen. So it's almost like you're saving face by going like, hey, look, if it doesn't work out, I'll deal with that when it comes. But I figure the best chance I have of making it work out, of achieving the goal, of doing the thing is giving everything I have to it with unwavering faith, extraordinary effort, and then let the chips fall where they may. So it's kind of like you can address that in advance. So people are like, oh, okay, so you're realistic that it might not work out, but you're going to try everything you can to make it work out. Well, damn, I'm learning a lesson from you. I'm going to do the same in my life, you know?
I like that. I would use the term hedging a little bit, and it sounds like I was going to ask you the question as to whether or not you vocalize those things, but it sounds like you did, where you said, hey, look, this is what I'm going to do, and worst case scenario, fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
I would call that hedging. I think hedging has a negative connotation to it, but it also lets people know and yourself know that at least you're not a crazy person. You're a rational, level-headed individual.
It's a great point. Yeah. Which is another fear people probably have, like embarrassed, like they're going to think I'm crazy or they're going to think I'm delusional, right? So yeah, I think it's a good point. Like address both possibilities and then let people know and yourself know where you're going to put your energy.
Yeah. You know, you talked about I may or may not have a miracle, and obviously the breadth of your work includes the miracle morning. Can you define miracle for me? Is it some higher source? Is it some thing that we can't see? Or is it I can create these things?
The latter, in my opinion, and maybe both. But here's the thing, right? I prefer taking agency over my life. So while I might pray to God, hey, God, help me out with this miracle that I'm trying to make happen in my life, I think that passively praying, hoping, and waiting for a miracle is definitely the wrong approach. But the idea is like, how can I create a miracle? And let me define it, because I'm glad you asked this, because it is a word that has a lot of different definitions, and there's a lot of skepticism around it, which is like, oh yeah, miracles, those only happened 2,000 years ago, or you can't bet on a miracle. The way that I define a miracle is any measurable outcome that is beyond the realm of what you currently believe is probable for you, right? And so when you achieve that outcome through two decisions I mentioned, unwavering faith, not in God. Yes, it can be in God also, but you've got to turn that faith around on you. Like even if you give the glory to God, right? And you're like, well, the faith goes to God. Okay, but have faith in yourself, right? Have faith in your ability to overcome or accomplish anything that you fully commit to and give it everything you have. And the second decision is extraordinary effort, right? So it's unwavering faith and extraordinary effort for as long as it takes to achieve that measurable, meaningful outcome that is beyond the realm of what you currently believe is probable for you. And I didn't say possible. It's an important distinction, because if you're an optimist in any sense of the word, you believe anything is possible, right? It's the most cliche phrase in the optimist's vocabulary, right? Anything's possible. But we don't pursue that which is possible. We only pursue that which is probable. Right? Anything's possible, but we only set our sights on like, okay, I think there's a chance, even if it's a long shot, there's some probability I could achieve this thing, right? And so that's where the probability becomes important. You've got to accomplish something that is probable. And here's the thing, once you maintain unwavering faith and put forth extraordinary effort, day after day after day, what might be impossible when you start, it becomes the probability increases day by day by day as your capabilities and your mindset grow. So day by day, you're becoming better. You're moving forward in the direction of that predetermined result, that miracle. And now it's becoming more and more and more probable as you keep making progress toward it.
I mean, I'm really glad that you talk about the unwavering faith plus extraordinary effort, because I'm a believer, but I don't resonate with the word faith. I just to some degree, sure, but the way that people often understand it or articulate it, it doesn't sit well with me. That if we believe whatever, that it will naturally come to us. And I'm reminded of the scripture. I think I pulled it up here. It's James 2:26, and it's faith without works is dead.
Yep.
Meaning that if you have this unwavering faith, but you're not really willing to do the work, then to me, that's actually not indicative of faith at all. It's just a hope.
Totally. Yeah. No, and that's the extraordinary effort piece of it, right? Like,
right.
And just a quick aside or where this came from. When I sold Cutco from age 19 to age 25. So I became one of Cutco's top sales reps, and I was trying to break a sales record. And I was trying to do something that no one in 50 years had ever done before. It was to sell $20,000 of Cutco in 10 days, 3 times in a row. No one had ever done that before. And so I'm going into the third time, and self-doubt. I'm like, man, I got so lucky on the first 2, like if that person wouldn't have bought and then their neighbor came over and, and that's how it always works in life. Like the harder you work, the luckier you get there. That's part of the equation. But I'm going, how am I going to do this 3 times in a row? No one's ever done this, right? And so as I'm sitting there the night before my first day of the sales competition, I go, all right, I'm going to reverse engineer this. All right, let me visualize. So 10 days from now, all right, let's just pretend I did it. I sold $20,000 of Cutco in 10 days, okay? And by the way, the previous 2 were 14-day periods, which is what made this so hard. They had cut our time period back 4 days out of the 14. So that's why it was so scary. I'm like, I did this in 14 days twice, not 10 days ever in my whole life.
3 times.
3,
right.
yeah.
Oh, let alone once. Yeah.
Let alone one. Yeah. And so I reverse engineered and I go, okay, if this were to happen 10 days from now, what will I have had to do every day? And what came to me is I have to maintain unwavering faith that I can do this. Because anytime we're working towards a goal and we fall off track or we're not on pace or things that we hit an obstacle, our faith, which often, so you can call it belief, call it faith, right? These are just synonyms. But if you go into, when you set a goal, you're like, all right, I just went to a Tony Robbins conference. Like, I know I can do this, right? And you're all fired up. So your faith on day 1 is like, it's right there. But as soon as you're not on track, your faith wavers. And as soon as your faith wavers, the necessary effort that would get you there, it wavers in parallel. You're like, what's the point of even trying? I'm not on track. It's not looking like I'm going to even achieve the goal. So I realized, I've been in sales for a couple of years at that point. I go, okay, I know that I'm going to have some major adversity. I just know I'm going to have some people not buy from me. I might have canceled orders. I might have people not show up. I might be halfway through my push period, as it was called, and not be on track. So the only way that I'm going to make this miracle happen is I've got to maintain, I can't let my faith waver. I have to maintain unwavering faith for till the last moment. How am I going to do that? I have to do it through the language in my head. So I'm committed to say, I am committed to sell $20,000 or at least give it everything I have until the last possible moment. No matter what, there is no other option. So I wrote that down. So technically that was my first affirmation. I am committed to sell $20,000 or at least give it everything I have until the last possible moment. No matter what, there's no other option. That's how I solidified a statement of faith that I would recite when that voice of self-doubt, of skepticism, of fear, whatever came up. So that was the first decision. I go, okay, what else do I have to do? I have to put forth extraordinary effort. I have to do everything in my power, again, until the last possible moment. And so I go out there. I'll tell you how it played out real quick. First 7, now keep in mind, I got to sell 20 grand in 10 days. So $2,000 per day average. At the end of 7 days, I needed to be at $14,000 to be on pace. I was at $7,000. So I had 3 days left and I was $13,000 away. So I just maintained unwavering faith and extraordinary effort for 7 days, sold 7 grand. And now I'm supposed to somehow there's nothing more I can do. And I have to sell 13 grand in 3 days. So Ryan, here's the interesting thing about this. If you would have asked me at that time, Hal, do you really believe that you're going to sell 13 grand in 3 days? I would have said, no, I don't actually believe it, but I'm maintaining unwavering faith that I'm going to do it. Like, catch that distinction, right? Like, if you would have said, bet me money, you'll do it. I'm like, I'm not betting you money, right? But I didn't give up the faith. I know it's like a weird nuance and distinction. And I can tell you how it played out. I went into the office on Monday to turn in my orders for the week. And my manager, Frank, he goes, Hal, I know you're going for 20K, man. Are you on track? I said, not even close, man. I'm at 7 grand. I got to sell 13 grand in the next 3 days. He goes, oh. And he tried to talk me into lowering my goal. He goes, Hal, dude, why don't you just go for 10K, man? That's a huge performance. You're coming off, you'll still be I go, Frank, I don't think you understand, man. I made a decision that I'm going to maintain unwavering faith, that I will sell $20,000 no matter what. There is no other option. And I'm going to put forth extraordinary effort for the next 3 days to try to make it happen. And I went out, I sold 3 grand the next day, 3 grand the day after. Now I'm 4 grand away. My very last appointment, I sold $3,000 to the wrong woman who was out of town from Europe. Like, it was the craziest story.
Just some wild story.
Wild story. Like, the sister-in-law was there and the real lady was out of town, and like, it was crazy. And I actually, at the last thing, at the doorstep, I go, she's like, she had an accent. She's like, I'm so sorry. My sister forgot you were coming. Anything I can do to help you? And I'm like, what are you doing here? And she goes, I'm her sister-in-law here for my brother's 50th birthday party. And I'm like, dude, the foreign lady on vacation's not going to buy knives. Like, this is a waste of time.
Yeah, why would she?
And right as I actually told her, I go, no, thank you, but no, thank you. And then I started to turn around and this voice in my head was, dude, you committed until the last possible moment, and this woman just asked what she can do to help you. The moment hasn't arrived, bro. You have a responsibility to your integrity to do the thing right now. And I turn back around and go, oh, ma'am, actually, do you mind if I do the presentation for you? So Ryan, I do my presentation. She tells me 2 things that made me call this the miracle equation. She says, it's so interesting that you're showing me high quality kitchen knives. She said, my husband and I were just looking for knives in Europe, and we almost bought a set of your competitors, Hinkle, but something inside us told us to wait until after our trip to America.
Whoa.
I'm like, no freaking way. And then she was there for her brother's 50th birthday party. What do you think his hobby was?
He's probably like a chef or...
Yep. And she goes, we have not been able to find him the right gift. Our biggest set that we sold was $1,500, and I was $3,000 away from my goal. She bought 2 ultimate sets, one for her and one for her brother, and it put me over my goal by $17, and I drove straight to the conference and took number 1 at the event. And it felt like such a miracle that I was like, dude, that's the miracle equation. And I started teaching it to all of my colleagues, and one after another, they went and did similar things that they had never done before. And then like 20 years later, I wrote it into a book.
That is such a wild. You know what she didn't tell you? She actually just put it on her sister's credit card because her sister gave it to her while she was house sitting for her. She didn't tell you that part of it.
Yeah, she left that out. That's fine. I don't care.
Yeah, regardless, you hit your goal, right?
Yeah, it's wild.
How do you though maintain this unwavering faith when other people have a say in the equation, right? She has a say, of course. Maybe you get passed over for a promotion and a boss has a say, or there's a romantic relationship and you'd love nothing more than to win her heart back, or pursue somebody else and other people have a say. There's got to be some room for that, right?
Yeah. And there's two parts to this answer. The first part is unwavering faith is a strategy, not a guarantee. And that's where people, again, it goes back to that fear of failure. Well, how can I maintain unwavering faith when I don't actually know for sure if it's going to happen? Well, do you want to increase the likelihood that it happens? Yeah. Okay, then maintain unwavering faith and then accept whatever the outcome is. So that's right. Like that's the answer. Now, if other people though like are involved, great example. I mentioned this earlier. So I self-published The Miracle Morning, and no one knows who I am. I'm an unknown author, right? So I'm getting on Facebook. Facebook's like relatively new at that point. I'm hustling.
New at the time, yeah.
Like I don't have any connections. I'm just like I'm committed, and my goal was to sell 1 million books that first year. Not because it's a realistic goal. I didn't even break it down. I'm just like, let's go for something that's so big, and I'm going to apply the miracle equation: unwavering faith and extraordinary effort. Like, keep in mind, I published the book 9 years after I had that sales contest where I developed the equation, and I applied that equation to everything in my life thereafter. And so, at the end of that year, and that year, by the way, I was on 152 other people's podcasts, and again, from no connections. I'm just reaching out. I'm emailing 500 to get on those 150. And I'm asking every podcaster.
3 plus a week.
Yeah. I'm asking every podcaster for referrals to other podcasters. Like I'm using my Cutco skills. I'm doing everything I can, right? I didn't have much money at the time, but I hired this PR kind of company that got me on 13 morning talk shows across the country. So I was like, good morning, Sacramento. Good day, Houston, yada, 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 right? I gave 36 speeches at colleges across the country to promote the book. So my point is, I maintained unwavering faith. I had affirmations that I used every day during my Miracle Morning that I would, I was using my Miracle Morning to sell the Miracle Morning and do the things. I put forth extraordinary effort through the podcast, all the things, the schedule, the interviews, the TV things, the speeches. At the end of that year, I was 987,000 copies short of my goal. Right?
Right. Just a little bit.
Just a little. Like think about, it's a 98.7% failure, if you will, right?
Failure.
And so like, was I discouraged? Totally. I mentioned earlier, I did the math. I'm like, okay, 1 million divided by 13,000 is 76. I'm 33 now, so I'll be 110 years old by the time I reach the goal of 1 million. I'm like, that sucks. But here's one of the most important parts of the miracle equation is the word until. I will maintain unwavering faith and put forth extraordinary effort to achieve my goal until I do, no matter how long that takes. So I brushed myself off, a little discouraged, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to try again. And so this is like when you have other people, let's say your goal is to, make $100,000 in a year and you go for the raise and you get fired or whatever, right? Okay, the word until is the underlying piece of that miracle equation, which is like, all right, things don't always work out the way we want them to, the way we hope they would, right? You might get fired from the job that you were maintaining unwavering faith that you'd become the CEO of, because you're supposed to go work for a different company or start your own company, right? So it's kind of like this miracle equation, this unwavering faith and extraordinary effort. It's a way of living. It's not based on each individual isolated outcome. It's a way of showing up and living and approaching all outcomes, knowing that at the end of your life, when you look back and you're like, dude, I had a bunch of failures, I had a bunch of successes, but the day that I made the decision to maintain unwavering faith that I could accomplish anything I put my mind to, and I put forth extraordinary effort, which is not 80-hour work weeks, it's just consistent effort for as long as it takes, right? that changed everything. That's what led to that opportunity and enabled me to overcome that setback to achieve the next thing, right? It's a way of living. It's a way of showing up to everything that we do.
I am really glad you said that, because I've always wondered if there's room for pivoting and adjusting in this unwavering faith thing. And, what I'm hearing you say, you correct me if I'm wrong, is that you might say, I'm going to become a CEO of this company. And maybe becoming a CEO of that company is not in your cards. Maybe it's you becoming a CEO of a company.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to find this incredible lifelong love that I have with a romantic partner. And you think it's with this one person, and you pray and you hope and you do everything you can. And maybe it's not with that person, but maybe there's somebody else to come into the picture relatively soon.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm hearing you say is it's not so much that desired outcome. It's that you can produce a outcome over a period of time.
Yeah, I like that. And I think that what just came to me is it's unwavering faith in the micro and the macro simultaneously. Right? The micro is like I said, it's a strategy to increase your likelihood of achieving everything that you want, right? Knowing that it's a strategy. It doesn't mean, I'll give you, here's a great example. Michael Jordan is one of my favorite athletes of all time, right? And, back when I was...
Should be for every man listening to this, by the way.
Every man over 40, right? 100%. Now it's, Steph Curry.
And younger. No. I said, and younger as well.
Okay, all right,
let's
just
enough. Set the record straight.
Nobody else
here.
still has the shoes selling, millions of shoes a year, right? But think about this. Think about Michael Jordan or any elite athlete. Now, I've never talked to Michael personally. I've never heard him say this. But if you think about the world's most successful athletes, I believe that they have unwavering faith that they can make every shot that they take. While the average athlete, their faith is dependent on their results like it is for the average person, right? So let's say you're an average athlete, even an average NBA player, right? So let's say you're above average, but you're in the NBA.
The cream of the crop.
Yeah, but you're no Michael Jordan, right? So you think about it. Let's say the average player gets the ball and he's like, dude, I'm going to crush this game. And he misses his first shot. He's like, oh man, I missed the first shot. No big deal, right? Gets the ball again, misses a second shot. Now his faith starts to waver. He gets the ball a third time. Maybe he passes it, but when he takes that third shot, maybe if he misses it, his faith is completely out the window, and he's like, don't even give me the ball again, dude. I'm off tonight. That's the average mediocre mindset, right? Now, Michael Jordan says, give me, and this is true for Steph Curry, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, you name it, the best of the best. Give me the ball. They miss a shot. Give me the ball. They miss a shot. Give me the ball. They miss a shot. They miss 7 shots in a row. Give me the ball. I'm going to make the 8th shot. They miss the 8th shot. How many times have we seen the greatest basketball players in the world have the worst 3 quarters of all time? They cannot make a shot. They are so far off. And it doesn't change that their faith doesn't waver. In the 4th quarter, they come alive. They score 35 points. They bring their team back from defeat to win the game. That's the miracle equation in action. Let me say one more thing on it. Has there ever been an NBA player that made every shot that they took?
No, of course not.
No, but there are NBA players that have unwavering faith that they will make every shot they take, even though they know it's not an actual possibility, but they know it increases the probability of their success. That's how you apply this in real life.
That's actually, that resonates with me, that you might realistically understand, I might not make the shot, but I believe that I can.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, one of the things I hear often from guys is this concept of imposter syndrome. And I hate the phrase. I hate the concept. I don't know that I've ever dealt with it in the way that most people describe it, because I don't believe I'm God's gift to whatever I'm doing at the time, but I believe I can be. Why would I do this podcast if I did not think I could be the best at podcasting?
Yeah.
Why would I go learn how to cook dinner for my kids if I didn't believe that I could make a delicious meal over time, not immediately? Yeah. It might be mac and cheese and hot dogs for a little while, and then we move to steaks and asparagus or whatever it is. But why would I do anything that I don't believe that I could get better at?
Yeah.
That I have some level of faith, maybe not unwavering, but some level of faith that I can improve.
Yeah.
Do you think this, Hal? Do you think this is a thought that's crossed my mind. I've interviewed, probably 550-ish, maybe a little bit more, hyper successful men in their own right. And sometimes I wonder if it's unwavering faith or if it's, and I'm trying to be very gracious when I say this, I even feel this way about myself personally. Is it just a level of delusion or density or ignorance even that, hey, I don't know, but if it's going to be somebody, it might as well be me? Because I feel that way sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I always say there's a fine line between optimism and delusion, right? Like it's a very fine line. And I think that, I know I cross it often. But I think that's also a strategy for success. I interviewed a gal for my podcast yesterday. Her name is Hala Taha, and she hosts the Young and Profiting podcast. And she taught, her company did I think $7 million last year. Like they're crushing it. They're a podcasting marketing network and this and that. And she's in her 30s, like they're crushing. And she was talking about, I was asking her, what are your superpowers? What are the keys to your success? And she's like, I just always believe I can do whatever I try and do. And she's like, and I've been rejected and I've failed, but I just keep believing I can do whatever. And she said something along the lines of, it's probably partly naive or delusional, yes, but I just maintain that. And it's like, so call it whatever you want, dude. Like it's a strategy. And here's a great thing. If you would compare it to that unwavering faith, I think there's a lot of overlap in unwavering faith and just this belief that you can overcome, or accomplish whatever, be the best at something. It's a strategy that increases your probability. So even if you're delusionally optimistic, great. That's better than being overly pessimistic. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. So. Sure. I do have another question. I see all the book iterations and versions behind you. There's probably, 20, 25 different iterations there. Have you felt like, you've put your hat on this Miracle Morning concept, and I think it's beautiful. And I think it's served literally millions of people, because I imagine at this point you sold over 1 million copies. I'm sure you've hit your goal.
Yeah, a little bit more, two to three-ish.
Yes, right. What's next? Is it just more iterations of this? Is it in depth? Is it nuance to the conversation, or is it a completely different concept?
I love that you asked that, because it's actually the timing of that is great, because the way I would have answered that question for the last 15 years, and this is still the answer, but it's now only half of the answer, is that the Miracle Morning, it's been read by roughly 3 million people in 42 languages around the world. And I still, to this day, and I published it in 2012, so 13 years ago. To this day, I get emails every day. And this keeps me on the mission, which is like every day out of 3 million people that have read it, that means there's 8 billion people that have never heard of it. And there's nothing that I've ever created in the world, no book, no speech, nothing that has impacted people as deeply and profoundly and as universally. Like I get high school kids. I just spoke to a high school 2 days ago on the Miracle Morning, and they were like, they're doing a 30-day challenge, but then we have a Miracle Morning after 50 book coming out that's addressing people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond. And that's based on how many stories I have from people who were 50, 60, had lost their purpose in life, and the Miracle Morning transformed their life. So my first answer is I will continue sharing the Miracle Morning as a big part of my life's work, a central theme for, indefinitely. And part of this is here's a side answer that for anybody that professionally, you're thinking about your profession. Once I got clear the Miracle Morning, it makes a profound impact for people. It made it easy for me to say yes and no to things. I get the more the Miracle Morning blew up, the more opportunities I got. Hey, you want to do this? You want to write this book? You want to make a movie? You want to do this? If it helps me reach more people with my mission of sharing the Miracle Morning, it was a yes. So we made the Miracle Morning movie. A filmmaker reached out, a friend of mine. He said, Hal, I'm in the Miracle Morning Facebook group. There's 350,000 people in that Facebook group. And the stories of how it's changing lives are extraordinary. We need to make a movie to share this message and these stories to inspire other people, right? Will that help me reach more people with the Miracle Morning? Yes. So Absolutely. We made that movie, right? Another friend of mine is an app developer, and he's like, Hal, you need a Miracle Morning app, man. Everybody in the Miracle Morning community is like, I use 6 apps. I have a meditation app and a visualization app and a journaling app, and I got a reading app. we need all in one, like 6 apps in one. So we developed the Miracle Morning app. It's crushing, 4.9 out of 5 stars. People are loving that app. And because it helps reach more people, So that's the first half. And the second half, real quick, I talked to my agent the other day, and I was going to write a book called The Miracle Life. That was my next book. And she said, Hal, don't take this the wrong way. I think you've squeezed the juice out of the miracle lemon. I think you need a new Hal Elrod brand, a completely new vertical. Whether it's a sales book or it's a productivity book, whatever. She goes, and that'll bring more people over to the Miracle Morning. But she goes, otherwise, if it's the Miracle Life, it's just going to be like, oh, he's doing another miracle book, So the answer is I will continue to share the Miracle Morning message for probably the rest of my life. It's my keynote message when I speak to companies. The Miracle Morning is my signature keynote, right? So it still is my thing. But I'm also in the process right now of figuring out what's the next book and the next brand going to be.
Yeah. For what it's worth, and she's more credible than I am, I agree with her. I would love to see something new and fascinating and interesting. That's not to dismiss or diminish any of the work that you've done with Miracle Morning by any means, but I would love to see what's next. I'm the kind of person who's like, okay, I got that. I can incorporate the Savers method into my daily life. And then what? What's next? What's new? You know what I mean? So that's cool. I'm glad you're getting that feedback.
And real quick, I can tell you the premise of the new book. So you
have it already.
Yeah, I've got the premise. I just don't have the title yet.
Let's hear it.
I feel like all of us spend our lives balancing 2 forces, what we do and how we feel, right? Like you think about it, like we're trying to optimize what we do and get ourselves to do the things that'll lead to health and success and wealth and happiness. And most people, when I survey the Miracle Morning community and I ask what your number one challenge is, it's almost always getting myself to do what I know I need to do. So self-discipline, if you will, like that's an area that I've excelled at. So it's teaching people the simplest way to get themselves to do what they need to do, when they need to do it, whether they feel like it or not. And then the other is inner bliss, like your emotional state, how we feel. And that was like an area of mastery for me where even in the car accident, I was at peace, I was happy, I was optimistic, even with cancer. So it's teaching how to really thrive in those 2 areas, what you do and how you feel. I just got to figure out how to package it in a way that's memorable and that kind of thing.
That's interesting. Well, can I offer maybe some insight?
Please.
So I've often thought about when I started Order of Man, my goal was to bridge the gap between what we know and what we do. Okay. Very similar. Yeah. What we feel and what we do. And I've often referred to that as the integrity gap. What we know we ought to be doing and what we're actually practicing in real life. And the wider that chasm, the more discontent and frustration and contention and feelings of inadequacy and anxiety exist. The better you bridge the gap between what you know, or in your case, what you feel, and what you do, you begin to bridge that gap and you start to find more fulfillment and peace. Inner bliss is the term that you used. Yeah. We've always referred to it as the integrity gap. Do with that what you want, but that's how I've always framed it.
I'm taking notes, dude. I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, brother, this has been a great conversation. Tell the people how to connect with you, where to learn more about what you're up to, and of course, incorporate the Savers method and the Miracle Morning method, and then whatever the new and next thing is as well.
Yeah. Thank you, man. You can of course you can buy all of my books, The Miracle Morning, The Miracle Equation on Amazon. You can download the Miracle Morning app in the App Store, the Google Play Store. The best spot for everything is miraclemorning.com. Like that's the hub, miraclemorning.com. If you go there, links to the books, you can watch the movie for free. You can download the app there. So yeah, that's the best hub. You can opt into the Miracle Morning, like the weekly. I have a podcast that comes out every week. So you can opt in there at miraclemorning.com as well.
Awesome. We'll sync everything up. I really appreciate your work. I know we haven't talked for almost a decade, which is crazy to think about. But I've watched your story from the sidelines and I've seen what you've overcome mentally, physically, emotionally. And I got to tell you, man, I'm just inspired. You know, when somebody has a setback the way that you've had setbacks in your life and overcomes those things, it's inspiring to me. I see so many people who almost as if they have the Midas touch, like everything they touched is just amazing. And I love a story of redemption. I love a story of men and women who are on the brink of death in your case, or catastrophe, and find a way to overcome it. And I'm inspired by it. I know a lot of people listening will be as well. I appreciate you, man.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. I'm inspired by you too, man. Over the last 9 years, what you've built, I was telling you before we started recording the podcast, with Order of Man, dude, you're on a mission. You've got a global community. You're making a huge difference, man. So thank you for the work that you're doing. And thank you so much for having me back. And hopefully, we don't wait 9 years for the next time.
I was just going to say that. Let's not let it be 9 years before the next conversation. Thanks, brother.